Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast, everyone. My name's Elijah. This, at its root, is a podcast about the Baltimore Orioles. However, today I'm going to talk about the Oakland Athletics. But by doing so, I'm going to talk about the Baltimore Orioles, and I'm going to talk about every other team. I'm going to talk about economics. I'm going to talk about public policy. I'm going to talk about civic duty. I'm going to talk about all of that. It's called multitasking. Before I do that, though, I want to thank the sponsor of this show. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for everything football. Baseball podcast, I'm going to talk about football too. Again, it's called multitasking. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the game. You think you know your stuff? Get in on the $200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every single week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200K. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online, the game starts here. All right. We're here today to discuss the Oakland Athletics, as I said. Oakland Athletics, as they are soon to be formerly known. The Athletics moved from Kansas City in 1967, started playing home games at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum in 1968, and stopped playing home games at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum on Thursday. There were children crying in the stands. There were adults crying in the stands. There were emotional interviews with everyone from Mark Kotze, A's manager, to fans crossing the BART Bridge to the stadium. There were photo ops. There were "Let's Go Oakland" chants. There was this powerful, insightful commentary from the broadcast booth. Shout out to Jenny Kavnar and Dallas Braden. They certainly rose to the occasion there. There was fans lined up to collect a cup or a water bottle filled with dirt from the field. There was a full house long after the game. There were naturally "Sell the team" chants. We'll get into why. Just all in all, this was 46,000 plus people mourning the loss of the team they love, showing up to demonstrate that there is no lack of support for Oakland Athletics. There is no shortage of fans willing to spend money, and there is fundamentally, at the baseline level, no reason for this team to be leaving. So negotiations over the Howard Terminal site, this proposed new ballpark for the A's, had been ongoing back to at least 2018. After those talks broke down, a statement from the Oakland mayor's office showed just how much of a farce they truly were. In response to a comment from MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred saying, quote, "They never got to a point where they had a plan to build a stadium at any site," the mayor's office countered with this, quote, "This is just totally false. There was a very concrete proposal under discussion, and Oakland had gone above and beyond to clear hurdles, including securing funding for infrastructure, providing an environmental review, and working with other agencies to finalize approvals. The reality is A's ownership had insisted on a multi-billion-dollar 55-acre project that included a ballpark, residential, commercial, and retail space. In Las Vegas, for whatever reason, they seemed satisfied with a 9-acre leased ballpark on leased land. If they had proposed a similar project in Oakland, we feel confident a new ballpark would already be under construction. Oakland showed its commitment to the A's, and that is why the A's belong in Oakland." So, negotiations were never in good faith from the A's side. John Fisher made a play that many owners are making nowadays, and this is not specific to MLB. This is all over the place. Owners are pushing cities and local governments to develop real estate for them, with the threat that they will take, the sports teams that these cities have come to love. Orioles fans obviously will remember negotiations between John Angelos and Maryland State and Baltimore City officials. In all, Maryland taxpayers are going to be providing $600 million in upgrades to improve Camden Yards, and the Orioles have, in return, kind of sort of promised with Scout's honor that they'll stay around for maybe 30 years. As part of those negotiations, John Angelos was working for funding and rights to develop land around the stadium, as well as improvements to the stadium. That is still something that is on the table and undoubtedly under discussion between the Rubenstein-led ownership group and those same local officials. You remember rumors of a move to Nashville were in the background throughout those negotiations, almost certainly floated by Angelos's camp as a means of getting leverage, as a means of threatening politicians. No politician wants to be the reason that, the Baltimore Orioles left Baltimore. We know how Baltimore as a whole feels about the Indianapolis Colts nowadays, for example. And the end goal for these owners is just to make more money. They want to use public dollars, your tax dollars, to develop land and build this awesome stadium and these great places to hang out. And they want you to come and spend a lot of money there that then goes straight to their pocket, right? And they don't want to have to shell out anything for it. They don't want to be a part of it. They just want to collect money. And I want to be very clear here, right? Owners do not play the games. They do not make the lineups. They are not doing any analytics to improve performance. They don't do any site coaching. They don't do any ushering in the stands. They don't contribute anything to this process. And if you think they pay the players, I encourage you to ask what money they are paying with. They pay the players with your money. They pay the players with the dollars that you spend on concessions, on tickets, jerseys, cable packages with Masson. They are not going to the bank every year to pull out 30, 50, $100 million, whatever the Orioles are willing to spend in a given season. They're not going to the bank to pull that out to pay employees. That is your money. That is the income they make off the team. They cover costs and they take the rest off the top. But because these owners are the ones that are pocketing your dollars and controlling the destiny of these teams, they fundamentally believe that they're entitled to more of your money because you should be thankful that they're keeping your team in your area. I will give Rubenstein just a little bit of credit. He largely seems like he actually feels some civic duty and, some kind of feels some sort of imperative to make this a successful team in Baltimore, support the team. That is the exception rather than the rule. Make no mistake, though, I think that even if David Rubenstein, if the Orioles suck and fans are not supporting and are not making him money, his, sense of civic duty will fade. It will not be the same case if he's not making money. So I want to say that, there's a contingent of people in this discussion, those people being Rob Manfred, the owners, and all of the poor fans who are brainwashed by these people. This contingent will tell you that these stadiums are bringing back money, funneling money into these communities, improving economies, that they are worth your tax dollars as a result, and that they're, serving as this catalyst for development in your area or something like that. It is false. It is false. It does not work. Studies going back to the 1990s all agree. And I won't just throw that out there as a standalone statement. I'm going to quote a couple of them. The summaries of these papers were publicly available on journalistresource.org. I am not a journalist, but I thank them for being a resource nonetheless. So from a paper entitled, quote, "The Impact of Professional Sports Franchises and Venues on Local Economies, a Comprehensive Survey." This is from John Charles Bradbury, Dennis Coates, and Brad Humphreys in the Journal of Economic Surveys, September 2022. This is the overview. Quote, "The level of venue subsidies typically provided far exceeds any observed economic benefits." Another quote here, "There is deep agreement in research findings. Sports venues are not an appropriate channel for local development policy." So exactly, how much money are we talking, from these teams, from this stadium being placed in this area that is going back into the community? Well, I'm going to not do justice to this guy's name, Timur Abiasov and Dmitry Sedov. This is from the Regional Science and Urban Economics Journal, January 2023 episode. Paper is titled, "Do Local Businesses Benefit from Sports Facilities? The Case of Major League Sports Stadiums and Arenas." The authors found that, Quote, a median sports facility generates approximately $11.3 million of annual additional spending for food and accommodation and retail businesses in the area. So, I just told you that, and you are well aware because you follow the Orioles, but $600 million of Maryland taxpayer money is going to the Orioles, is going to, build up Camden Yards, retrofit, improve, whatever. If you take $600 million and divide it by the $11.3 million figure cited here, it's going to take just over 53 years for that investment to be returned into the local economy. This is, a maybe 30-year lease. We still don't fully know. So the fact of the matter is that this may never be paid back. If you want to say something about inflation, inflation is going to work on both the investment as well as that 11.3. So, it all scales together. And the fact of the matter is that we may never see the full return on investment as a result of this. And if you want to ask yourself, what's it worth to feel good about having a team in your area and, have that pride, economists do try to answer that. They survey residents on what they personally would pay to have a team in the area, what's it worth to you? And I think if you're listening to this podcast and if you're me, I would pay a good amount to have a team in my area and have something I can be a fan of. That is not the case for other taxpayers. But the results of that survey are then scaled to the population size of a given city or state, whatever. And then that kind of gives you this roundabout figure, something kind of representative of what that city or township or whatever is, quote, willing to pay for a team. And then it's compared to what residents are actually paying for it. So in our case, the Ravens and Orioles are getting $1.2 billion across both of them. Divide that by the population size of Maryland, a little over 6 million. That's every taxpayer paying just under $200 for these improvements. And that's $97 per team. If every Marylander was willing to pay $50 to have a team in the area, then that's a bad investment. If every Marylander was willing to pay $1K, then sure, go ahead, do it, and you make a lot of Marylanders happy. This is a broader study, but I'm just illustrating the concept, I guess, with these Maryland specific examples. But going back to Bradbury, Coates, and Humphreys, this is a different paper entitled Public Policy Toward Professional Sports Stadiums, a Review. This is from the Journal of Policy Analysis and Management, September 2023. This one says, these calculated values I just described, going and surveying, amounted to 13% of total capital construction costs and 16% of public contributions. And then that implies that, quote, intangible social benefits of hosting professional sports teams are well below levels needed to justify typical subsidies. So basically, they did these surveys, they came up with these figures, said everyone's willing to pay this much. If you, extrapolate that to the size of the entire community, what chunk that people are just willing to pay to have this team in their area, what chunk of that is what chunk of the total does that represent? And the answer was 13% of the total costs and 16% of what the public is paying. Ideally, somebody would be willing to contribute 100%, or, an area would be willing to contribute 100% when their tax dollars are the ones going to actually pay for this. It essentially implies that these communities are not willing to spend what local officials have gone ahead and spent. And so, this is really just, it's all a farce. These stadiums just do not give the return on investment for taxpayers. The owners know it, but they're all in formation to just milk you and everyone around you for every penny that they can. Owners voted unanimously to approve the Athletics move to Vegas. They simply don't care that you have given them hundreds, maybe thousands of your dollars if you're older or if you're a little crazy like I am. They don't care that some of your fondest childhood memories were at the ballpark. They don't care that I grew up imitating Chad Bradford's, submarine arm action, Adam Jones's swing. They do not care. They don't care. And if they did, they could do something. It's not like there isn't precedent for owners taking a stand against others. A hilarious fact I found in this is that in 1964, a couple years before the Athletics moved to Oakland, their owner, Charlie Finley, was shut down twice by other owners, once trying to move to Kansas City and once, hilariously enough, to move to Oakland. 3 years later, excuse me, I hit the table. 3 years later, something had changed and they did end up going to Oakland. But on the first attempt and on an attempt to move to Kansas City, he was vetoed and the votes were 9-1 against him. He was the one voting for it. There is precedent for owners to go against the others. Each of these owners has the ability to vote. That's why they are allowed to vote. And none of them found issue with how this went down. Not one. Clean sweep, unanimous approval. So, but A's fans really shouldn't feel that bad. John Fisher wrote a very nice letter. Well, at least somebody who works for him wrote a very nice letter and signed it for him. It said he tried, and so they really shouldn't feel that bad. And I just want to demonstrate how hard he tried real quick. He tried so hard that the largest contract ever given out by the Athletics remains less than 10% of the dollar value of Shohei Ohtani's contract. It was Eric Chavez at 6 years, $66 million. And that was signed in 2004, which just so happens to be the year before John Fisher bought the team. The largest deal that John Fisher did approve was Chris Davis's 2-year, $33 million deal. Chris with a K, not a C. This was signed for the 2020 and 2021 seasons. COVID happened, and he only paid a prorated amount of the first year. And then in year 2, Chris Davis was traded. Because I have integrity, unlike John Fisher, I will admit here that Elvis Andrus came back, who had a semi-high salary, not as high as Chris Davis's. But the Athletics shed salary in the deal, I think, is the important part. So I will point out also, in the event of, or in the effort to show how hard John Fisher tried, the 2020 team had Sean Murphy, Matt Olson, Marcus Semien, and Matt Chapman. 3 of those guys have signed 9-figure deals. One of them, Sean Murphy, signed a very, very nice extension. Don't think it got to 9 figures, but legitimate all-star players all around. None of them were extended. 3 were traded for prospects that have largely not panned out, and 1 was allowed to walk in free agency. So credit to the city of Oakland for even having green anywhere in the closet, even having like green algae growing in the river. I would have been burning every ounce of green that I've seen to illustrate one last time how much MLB and the owners truly do not care about the reality of your connection to a team. I will leave you with this quote from Rob Manfred, once again commissioner of Major League Baseball, somebody who should certainly understand regional rivalries. When asked how MLB felt about essentially leaving Oakland hanging, Manfred responded, "First of all, we do have a major league team in the Bay Area. It's not like there is not an available option. The Giants obviously still play there." So Yankees fans should go root for the Mets. Chicago White Sox fans should go root for the Cubs. I cannot emphasize enough how little these people care about you or what these teams mean to you, mean to us. We are money trees to them, and they never miss harvest season. The power that we have is to be vocal, to make sure that MLB hears our discontent, and we ultimately have the power of the consumer. We are the money that makes this whole thing happen. Do not buy a Las Vegas Athletics jersey, please. This has been a somber episode of the Warehouse Podcast. I'm Elijah. The Orioles have clinched home field advantage for the Wild Card Series. Just took a second game from the Twins. Everything is wonderful in Birdland. David Rubenstein is doing okay so far, but do not, don't pin hopes on it. Don't do anything. That's all we got. As always, if you could subscribe to the show, follow us on YouTube, etc., etc. We love the support. Helps us grow, helps us reach new listeners, new followers, etc. Any ratings, comments, the shtick. Yeah, come chat with us. Love hearing from you guys. I don't have the patience for it tonight. So I'll talk to you soon.